All right, well, thank you. And James, that was a great talk, wherever James is now. It was fascinating. And the work I do as a transpersonal coach come counsellor, the reason why I say come counsellor is I'm actually qualified in Sydney, Australia. So as a transpersonal counsellor there, but in the US we can't use that label. So I've done a professional coaching program, ICF. So I call myself a transpersonal coach. And transpersonal, trans is beyond, persona, beyond mind, ego state. So it's really working at the soul spirit level. And James' story of the wolf becomes like our shamanic or mystical animal or creature walks with us, a wonderful hero's journey, Joseph Campbell's type of work. And we go through that. So my work maps in very nicely on that. The book I've written, and it's not my, saying attacks me, it's not my sixth novel, it's my first, came out in March this year. Your Return to Freedom, Rediscovering Who You Really Are, it's a practical guide to finding lasting inner peace. And this journey started about 25 years ago when I was, let's say, unceremoniously released from a major IT company in South Africa for being an arsehole. And I was 35 years at the time. Ego was enormous, was absolutely fabulous. You know, there was a really nice big director position, a big fancy BMW, a house on the beach, and blah, blah, blah. At 35, far too young. And Spirit decided, you've got more work to do, you're being an idiot, and pulled the rug from underneath me. And so I spent, gosh, not very long, probably about a week or 2 weeks feeling really, really sorry for myself. And I always say to people, if you're going to feel sorry for yourself, just do it, indulge in it. Get over and done with, because it's really, really boring for those around you. So be impeccable in your self-pity. And so in that term, impeccability and self-pity is from, again, Carlos Castaneda, teaching you Don Juan and that whole Castaneda series. So at that time, 25 years ago, Castaneda came into my life with the teaching Don Juan and his whole series as one of my great teachers. Because when we step into a place of spiritual awakening or spiritual awareness or that journey, and James's work is on the shamanic sort of path there, using the Native American and the Eskimo Inuit work. Its lexicon is really challenging. And what lexicon do we use? Especially since we come from a Judeo-Christian background, we have a certain lexicon. When that no longer serves, we need to find a new lexicon. So that came up around that time. At the same time, an extraordinary character. They always say when the student's ready, the teacher arrives. This really way out character, he was only 32 at the time, arrived in my life. His name was Ferdy, this is South Africa, and I honor him in my writing, although the character called Ferdy in the book is actually a conglomerate of all the spiritual teachers, both living and not living, who arrived then and continue to arrive. So he spoke the same language as Castaneda, as Don Juan, and he also would see into the world which the Yoda, that whole world of Star Wars. So these sort of nature spirits, nature allies. So that was kind of my teaching. So from being an engineer, very fixed in the first attention world, very self-important, to being muddled up and mixed up with this crazy world. And luckily, the head of the spiritualist church in South Africa took me under her wing as well and gave me some sanity amongst all this madness. So Return to Freedom is around that. And the first part of the book, it's actually 3 parts, talks about the spiritual journey. It talks about how we reach a point of crisis. It talks about the concept of power and what does power mean. And we all use these words, power. We use the words freedom and so on. And so I believe when we're in a place of power, and the way I define power, it's an attribute or a quality of the divine intelligence, of God, of spirit. So it's an attribute or quality of the divine. So the kind of work we do is what's called appointments in power. And I'll just read out what that means. That was given to me. And it says when 2 or more people come together in an environment free of judgment's important here, something extraordinary happens. With nothing to defend, they become totally present in the moment. Again, with nothing to defend, because when we start defending things, we go straight into the ego mind and the sense of self-importance, and we stop listening to what other people say or what Spirit is saying. So with nothing to defend, they become totally present in the moment. A depth of wisdom not normally accessible is attained. So if you think of it, you empty your mind, go into total stillness, you stop defending your ego self, the mind chatter, the judgment, you can then become very, very receptive to what Spirit, God, is wanting to tell us. All of us, not just one of us, we all have it. Insights into pressing issues, some not yet even conscious, are presented, resulting in moments of rare clarity. It's as though the forces of the universe conspire to support and liberate us, so we may move forward with confidence and manifest our deepest desires. We call these moments appointments in power. So this book was really written in moments, what I call appointments in power, and a lot of it was actually written down at the City of Refuge, the picnic site. Because that's an extraordinary power spot, that place to sit there. And I'd sit there with my iPad, just typing away, and then see what's actually there. And the Path to Freedom model is a key part of this. Because what was given, originally when I wrote the book, it was about 300 pages of about me and my journey and my story. I proudly showed it to a publisher in New York, who's actually the US distributor or agent for Watkins Publishing in the UK, and he looked at it and said, "Oh, that's nice. You've chosen the most difficult path to write. Go away and rewrite it." People don't want to know about you, they want to know what's in it for them. So off I went. And 2.5 years later, 3 years later, I phoned him and said, "Guess what? I'm sending you the manuscript." And he actually couldn't believe it. And so he's been a mentor to me, as have many, many other people. So this came out after that. So the first part, I say, it's about the spiritual journey, the hero's journey, discrimination versus discernment, living in a country called South Africa where apartheid is legislated discrimination. I'm very aware of that word discrimination. I believe we use it very liberally in the US without thinking about it, because there's judgment in that word discrimination. And I think of word discernment, when we recognize you're a woman, I'm a man, you're of this race, you're of that race, that's okay. It's just recognizing differences and being curious, a place of curiosity, not trying to brush it over or judge about it. So that's an important part of this process. The other important thing in here is, how do we not give away our power? We spend our entire days giving away our power to others. Okay? Defending positions, having the last word. One of the cards I've left with you, on the one side of it says 6 steps to reclaiming your personal power. And just look at those there, and if you can check them all off at saying, I don't do any of these things, then I'd love to meet you. All right, because I know just the first one here is one which I get tripped over. I knowingly defend the indefensible. No, you defend personal beliefs equating to values. Wow, how many people here have personal beliefs and actually think they're their values? So I believe we all share the same values, but we fight over our personal beliefs, and we go to war over our personal beliefs. But we all share the same values. What a way of giving away power. So that's what that's about. So it's a little takeaway you can stick it in your fridge and think, okay, which one have I checked off today? How many of them? And so a way of regaining power is just to resolve that. The second part of the book is to do with this Path to Freedom model. Now that model, normally when I have more time, I give workshops and presentations around all of this stuff. I have the whole model next to me here on a big flip chart, and we stick things onto it and we build it up so it makes sense. Or I have a PowerPoint presentation. I'm a manager in the background. In a previous life, I'd have to use PowerPoint. So that model actually is on the other piece of paper, the other card, and I'm going to take you people through that. So I'm going to ask you a question. What does freedom mean to each of you? We use the word freedom. I want freedom in my life. What does that word freedom mean?
Acceptance.
Acceptance.
Non-confinement.
Non what?
Non-confinement.
Non-confinement. Okay. Choice. Independence. Right. Peace of mind. Inner peace. Yeah. So we have all these different ideas of what freedom means. Now, if we have an idea where it is, why are we struggling to get there? Why is it so hard? It's not that hard. Okay.
I don't think it's that hard.
All right. We have one person who's feeling free. Fantastic. Okay. All right. Because I think in this model here, it's a 4-quadrant model, and I'll take you through that very briefly. We have, so this is where you now follow me. This is like a classroom session now. So if you thought you're coming here to do no work, because the second part of the book goes through the model, builds it up, and explains how one travels through life with that. The third part of the book, by the way, is where are you on it? What do you need to do to break out and find that place of inner peace, of acceptance, of joy, of harmony, of freedom? So we all come in at a place of conception. We say that pre-conception, we have choice. Preconception. So I made the choice, preconception, to I want to come in this lifetime as a white, male, gay man with a mother from Germany and a father from Britain and born in Tanzania. Cool, that's an interesting choice. I haven't tried that one before. Let me try that incarnation. Now, once conception takes place, I can't say, I've actually got second thoughts around that. I don't think I really want to do this. Apparently, I did have that second thoughts, and about 7 months, apparently, as my mother says, you were stuffed back in. Because I wanted to come out early and say, not keen to do this one. But it was too late. So once conception takes place, we're too late. We're in that quadrant 1, conception. But we come in as totally free beings. We're the one with the I am, with spirit, with God, with the divine universe, with everything. We're complete soul integrated beings. And we're liberated there. But as soon as we're born, we learn very, very rapidly conformance and compliance, which is on the left-hand side of that model. We go there very rapidly because I need to conform and comply to be loved, to be fed, to be clothed, to start actually living otherwise, and to conform to this world. And then something very big happens around the age of 4 to 5 years old. And Plato wrote around this, Socrates, and the symposium around Zeus when he cuts his children in two. And it's a mythology around that which many of the philosophers have tried to understand and explain. And there's even a movie and a play on Broadway, Hedwig and the Angry Inch, if any of you know that one. It's pretty out there. Same story. Part of us splits off around that age. And we call that, in the mythology, the soul aspect. That part of who I really am. That part, that, in James' story, the shamanic wolf. And he made, because he's a man, he made that wolf a female affair, a female creature. So as an archetypal male, it'll be the female energy splits off. And a woman will be an archetypal male energy splits off. Those are the archetypes. Of course, we're very blended now with all sorts of different blending taking place. That's for the next book. So we then spend the rest of our lives looking for that thing which split off. We don't know that it's actually part of who we are. We go out hunting for it, searching, 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 searching. In relationships, thinking, oh my God, you're the thing that split off. You're exactly what I've been looking for. You make me feel so good about me. Not for 1 minute thinking how I make you feel about you. All right, so that sort of selfish falling in love part. And of course, we go through relationships recognizing that another person cannot make us happy. It doesn't work that way. All they can do is mirror back to us things we need to still deal with. And so when this lady here reaches happiness or joy, she's done her work. Beautiful.
I was going to say, I've done a lot of work on it.
Right, fantastic.
And a lot of it has to do with choice, in my view.
Right, okay. So the choice there, I will go with that. We have free will to either stay in a place of self-pity or step out of it and do our work. So we find ourselves in quadrant 3, which is we're in a place of conformance and compliance, which is a fear-based place. And we've also become separated from our soul aspect, the place where formalized religion takes hold of us and holds us there and entraps us there without our permission in most cases, through christenings, through baptism, through various celebrations. We're not even we're not given the choice. So we find ourselves in that place where we are totally held and totally controlled. And that's a place I think where about 90% of people still are. And in that place is where we find that compression takes place. I need to go out on the quest. I need to go and find out who I am. I need to go on my journey. The hero's journey. We love the movies like Shrek, like Pretty Woman, like Avatar, like Star Wars. We love those movies. They're the hero's journey. Charles' story, the hero's journey was built in there. So we love those stories. Okay, so we go out on our quest, because if we don't, the soul aspect is still tapping, saying, I'm waiting for you to pay attention. Because shiny object syndrome's taken over. All right? So if we do not pay attention, we will go to that point of crisis, that point of breakdown. Now, in my case, I was in the corporate world, did not work. As a gay man, going to this big corporate functions, taking the wife on my arm, expected of me, was really not very comfortable. I was just being a fraud. It was crazy. Until eventually one day I said, it's enough. I'm just over this BS. And that the breakdown happened, very unelegant, and I got kicked out for it. That's a challenging journey. So, but what happens then is when we go often from there to saying, I'm going to challenge a system. I'm not prepared to deal with the system. We go to that place we call independence, and it takes courage to go there. But we see people who, to buck the system, challenge the system, but they have not done their inner work. The leaders of this country and other countries are often sitting there. They will not conform or comply to a damn thing. They just run their world as they wish to run the world, but they haven't done their inner work. So that's quite a dangerous place to be, because that's a place where it's got see me there. I want to be seen, I want to be seen, I want to be seen, but without doing my inner work. Because the thing that's waiting to be seen is and I will go into a place of crisis, that breakdown before breakthrough. And so we see a lot of people going through that breakdown. It happens through divorce, through illness, separations, job loss, accidents. That's where the crisis happens. If we don't do our inner work, it will come to us. Okay, it will come to us. So we're being invited, and what I do as a teacher on this stuff is say to people, you don't need to go there. Just take responsibility and do that work. Men, I'm talking to you mostly here. Women are helping men do it right now. The Me Too movement is really challenging men to do their work. Power is a female affair. Strength is a male affair. What do men crave more than anything else? Power. If men don't go directly to the source of power, spiritual power, do their inner work, they will steal it from women. Bullying, abuse. And women are saying no more. We're in the age of Aquarius now. This is all part of the first part of the book. I'm moving around. Age of Aquarius. We're no longer in the Piscean era. We're no longer the hierarchical, patriarchal, bully type energies. Age of Aquarius is the feminine era. We're into that space now. Men are going to be left behind if they don't do their work. And if they still keep on bullying women to get their power, they are going to see the consequences. We're seeing this more and more and more in our headlines now. And it's not going to stop. It's going to get even more prevalent, and so it should do. Okay, so there's a big call to men in this book as well. Do your work. And what we do, when we do our work, and hopefully don't go through crisis, we find back to that place of where I find my purpose, or kuleana, which is a wonderful Hawaiian word, kuleana, my purpose, and I have a duty and responsibility once I find purpose. We find that, and we actually follow the path of spirit. So this book is really around that. Why have we got ourselves in this mess? We all go through it. Trickery of spirit and the shamanic Toltec teachings tells us we're going to go through it, and we explain that there. What the model is, it was given to me by Spirit, the model of how we transition it. It's not neat squares, by the way. We go through chaotically, and there's different paths, which I bring up in the third part, to identify where we are and then what we can do about it. And how do we stop giving our power away from that first card? So we're on that space there. And then I guess a point is, why did I even write this thing? And so I wanted to share at the very end where I go into a little bit about my dialogue with my mad, crazy teacher. And we were busy chatting, and he's saying to me, I need to bring this work out. This is now 25 years ago when I started this work, and it took me all that time to publish this in March this year. So I said to this guy, Ferdy, and where do I fit into all of this? He replied, it takes courage to speak out against those who have manipulated the systems and structures of our current society, and to show ordinary people that there is a way out of their inner prisons. Awareness is the key ally anyone can have if they wish to change their world. Your role, Nigel, is to bring that awareness to people. My role is to teach you so you can share this sacred knowledge. It will not be easy, as these topics are extremely subtle, but at the same time embody an enormous amount of power. You are educated, I am not. You have learned how to talk to people from all walks of life. I do not have that skill. Your own lineage is highly refined, and thus you have the ability to stand out from the masses. I come from a family of simple folk, and we believe we're unable to command attention. I will teach you to access this wisdom directly. In return, I ask that you communicate it to the world when the time is right. A familiar sadness covered Ferdy's face as he spoke to me at length about how it pained him to be unable to fully share his sacred knowledge with those who needed to hear it. I had the utmost admiration for this man sitting in front of me. On the one hand, he was a very simple person. On the other hand, he was an extraordinary teacher capable of accessing multiple realities and with the ability to communicate incredibly foreign and obscure concepts in a language that made sense, especially to a trained engineer such as myself. He was now asking me to use my own particular gifts to bring this knowledge into the open when the time was right. I agreed to do it. He went on, "But be extremely vigilant that self-importance does not get in the way, Nigel. If you fail in this one instruction, you will become all the more tasty for death." And then to finish off, I say, by reading this book, I hope you may find your own path to arriving at that inner peace and stillness and return home having lived a fulfilling and meaningful life. It has taken me over 25 years to distill the extraordinary teachings into a form that can be readily assimilated. The art of bringing sacred knowledge into the material form has been guided by many amazing teachers. Their lack of judgment and unconditional love has made the experience of writing both highly rewarding and extremely humbling. Please enjoy this gift to you. Thank you. Do we have time for questions? Questions? It's very simple.
How tough was it to get back to writing after you've been rejected by the publisher?
He actually wasn't, well, he was a publisher. I didn't go to him as a publisher. I went to him just for advice. I knew he was right. Because what I had done, I had not taken responsibility for becoming the teacher. I was like Carlos Castaneda. I was a student, and it was about Ferdy teaching me and he was the Don Juan, and I was the Castaneda character. And he said, no, those books got a short shelf life, and they're very niche. You've got to become the teacher and take responsibility for what you've been taught and pass it on now. Go and do it. And I knew he was right.
And how much more rewriting did that require?
Oh, completely. Another 2 years. But some of the dialogue in here, I've cut and pasted from the original one because where that dialogue takes place, it reinforces some of that message. Because the teacher of mine had an uncanny way of bringing these really esoteric concepts into a very basic language, almost a simplistic language. But in that simplicity is the power.
Yeah, that's great perseverance to
Yeah.
stay with it.
But I knew from 25 years ago I had no choice but to do this. I'm just very stubborn.
Would you define power as your ability to be in the present moment?
I define power as an attribute or quality of the divine intelligence, an attribute of God, that when we become in the present moment, we can be in power. We're not distracted from it. Power is around us, and like I say, God, we'll give it that name for now, is very, very polite. It'll sit waiting incredibly patiently for us to start paying attention. That's when power comes in. So it's when two or more people come together in an environment free of judgment, something extraordinary happens. So it's like a chicken soup of the soul type of when we're in that space, power steps in. I got a great shout out from Jack Canfield actually on his Twitter feed for the book, so I was very proud of that.
Then would you define strength that comes from men?
Strength is a male energy. So power is the Shakti energy in the Hindu mythology. It's the yin energy. Strength is the yang or the Shiva. The answer Shiva is a focus. We all have both qualities within us. It's not saying because I'm a man, I've only got strength. We all have it within us. Women naturally are connected more with power, men naturally more with strength. As we're moving more into the era of power, the age of Aquarius, the feminine era, men have got some catching up to do. And unless we wake up and do that work, we're going to be left behind and become angry around it. And what we're also finding, and I'm going to put that women have, I believe, been suppressed for quite a long time, by the bullying, the strength, the Piscean era, the Piscean energies. Those are breaking away. They have done since the age of Aquarius here. You know, the musical was a nice introduction to that. And that's breaking away, and women are starting to come into their own power. And I ask women not to try and match men on their terms, because men have failed on their terms. So don't try and match a failure. Rewrite what it should look like. And men are the ones who've got to change now. But in that there's, you know, in the Chinese medicine, we have the concept of fear feeds and fuels anger and resentment. Anger and resentment, you resolve that, comes to joy and happiness. But anger and resentment, so fear, women, I believe, been living in a space of fear for quite a long time. That is dropping away. They're saying, no more, me too, we're going to be counted, not putting up with this stuff anymore. But that feeds anger and resentment. And we're seeing there's a challenge here that, because anger and resentment controls a co-cycle in Chinese medicine, the ability to show empathy and sympathy towards another. So in the anger, I don't want to be around women within that full-blown anger and wrath. Okay, I'm going to step away and let that resolve, let the pendulum settle again, but we're going into that maternal world. And so men, we need to do our work. The book, there's four audiences.
Just one last question.
Oh, okay. Yes.
Oh, so it's not really not a question. It's interesting that you chose Castaneda as the beginning of your transition, your journey. As a long time ago in another life, I was a student at UCLA,
Mhm.
and Castaneda had come out with one of his first books. And he would, I never sat in any of his lectures or his development in writings. And he would walk by, it was like he was on air. And he always wore these fascinating white suits. And the whispers, you know, that was like, and the gasping and the awe in people's eyes as he drifted by was amazing. So,
Yeah, he's a great teacher, but I like that I chose Castaneda. I think the teachers choose us,
well, interesting.
because unless we're ready, unless a teacher wants to work with you, they will not appear. There's probably lots of teachers here who are checking everyone out, saying, I'm not going nowhere near that person or that person or that person. The teachers choose us, so we have to be ready for the teachers. And so I'd lost everything in my little crisis, my coming out crisis. I lost the house, I lost the cat, I lost the car, I lost everything. It was bang. And then the teachers found me. They were waiting. I didn't know there were those people. So, what do you mean you do this stuff? What are you talking about? Well, hello. And they were not going to interfere with my crisis before that point, because I would not have paid attention. Okay, but the lexicon's a big issue around this. The language we use. So the Castaneda lexicon, and my own teacher Ferdy used the same lexicon, and it became very useful in the sense of self-importance and the ego and stuff like that. You got one more here? Yes.
I'm just interested in what I've observed, that in our language, we, as women, have emerged.
So as women have emerged,
Into, out of the home and into the world. Often the words are used, women being empowered. And the power is already in
Exactly.
us. We're not being empowered.
Exactly.
We're being
I would absolutely agree. Women are power. Power is a female affair.
But it's
So how can you be
interesting-
empowered when you already have power?
Yes, and it's interesting that
yeah.
at least my era,
Hmm.
you know, that isn't where we thought power.
Well, I'd like to say women are not allowing themselves to be repressed anymore,
Yes,
as opposed to being empowered.
yes.
I think it's the other way around. And they're standing up and challenging men. And you see there's a whole stock of leaders out there. I would say Justin Trudeau is one of them, who understands and gets this stuff. Our current leader, I don't think, gets it. So he's squarely in quadrant 3 if you look at that model. You know, and you look at the emotion around quadrant 3, you can plot people on these quadrants. Looking at the emotion, you can plot where you are on the issue. Look at the emotion, that's how you plot where you are. He's sitting right there. Ego, insensitivity, selfishness, and so on. But with that becomes crisis. And so I think it's a wonderful, wonderful teacher for all of us to start revaluing our own values, relooking our values. So I really bless this current leader for helping us take responsibility for what's important to us and what's not, and looking at our values. And so we'll see where we go. All right. Well, thank you very much. And hang on to those cards. They're for you to take with you.